Hi guys, Brian from Brian Boas here. Maintaining a constant supply of high quality food items is critical to ensure the health of your boa constrictor. Today I'm going to be discussing topics related to your boa's food supply, including the pros and cons of breeding your own feeder rodents, as well as things to look for in a commercial rodent supplier. If you like this video, please subscribe to the Brian Boas YouTube channel for more videos on keeping and breeding boas in captivity. So the first decision you're going to have to make is whether you want to get all of your rodents from a commercial source, or you want to breed them all yourself, or you want to do a mix with, some commercially, some bred at home. And my own situation is that the vast majority of rodents I buy from a commercial supplier. I keep a few cages of mice that I breed, and that's to ensure that I have lots of availability of small feeder mice for my baby boas, because when my baby boas are first born, a lot of them, especially like the small island boas, the dwarf island boas, are really picky and they want to eat a live animal. So that's the reason why I breed the mice. But the vast majority of my animals I feed frozen rodents that I get from a commercial supplier. So if you are going to breed your own, there's some definite advantages to this, but there's also a lot of drawbacks. And so the advantages of breeding your own rodents are that it ensures that you have a very high quality, very reliable source of rodents. The only way you really know about where a rodent came from is to raise it yourself. You know exactly what it ate and how it was grown and what conditions it's been under. Breeding your own rodents also allows you to select the exact size that you need. When you order from a commercial source, sometimes you have to get an in-between size, and the exact size you want might not be stocked, although most commercial rodent sources do have quite a range of different sizes. And then one of the big advantages is that you don't have to worry about any potential shipping delays. As you know, right now there's some challenges with shipping over the country, and the only way that you can be completely isolated from a breakdown in shipments is to breed your own. And then a final advantage of breeding your own rodents is you can potentially save some money doing it this way over buying from a commercial source, although the amount of money really doesn't come out to nearly as much as you might imagine. And depending on your circumstance, you might actually have to pay more money to breed rodents than it would take just to buy a comparable number of rodents. Which brings us to the disadvantages, which are quite substantial. Breeding rodents is a pretty complicated operation. You need a lot of time and space to do this correctly. In terms of the space, a general rule of thumb is that for every collection of snakes, for a rodent breeding colony to support that collection of snakes, it's going to take about the same amount of space. So if you have a room full of snakes and you have maybe 50 snakes in there, you would need an equal number of space dedicated to rodents in order to feed that collection. And then in terms of the time, you're probably looking at least 2 to 3 times as much time to maintain your rodent collection as to maintain the snake collection. And so a lot of us don't even have enough time as it is to spend with all our snakes. But if you have lots of rodents, you're going to spend probably 2 to 3 times as much cleaning the cages and feeding them and doing all of the daily activities that are required for a rodent collection or rodent colony. And then there's quite a substantial upfront cost to get a rodent colony up and running. If you want to buy or build rodent racks, you're looking at the same amount of money as a comparable snake rack, either to build or to buy it. So you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in upfront costs. And then you're going to need a lot of money for consumables. The bedding has to be changed quite frequently, a lot more frequently than snake bedding. You have to feed them a lot of food, so you'll go through lots of the rodent kibble. You have to change the water bottles quite often. You have to deal with leaking water bottles and malfunctioning equipment. So breeding your own rodents is not a trivial pursuit. So a few other disadvantages of breeding rodents, as you probably know, they have a negative smell. And even if you're cleaning the rodent cages regularly, you're going to have that smell that lingers. And then a final disadvantage of breeding your own rodents is rodents are really good at escaping from their enclosures. And depending on your living situation, your significant other or roommate might not be so happy with the thought of rats and mice running loose in your house. As I mentioned, I get the vast majority of my feeder rodents from a commercial source and only breed a very small number for my baby boas. I just simply don't have the time and space to devote to breeding rodents. And believe me, if I had more time and space, I would much rather get more snakes than more rodents. So that being said, I want to discuss now about how to choose a commercial supplier of rodents. And there's quite a few commercial suppliers out there that ship frozen rodents. And I've dealt with a number of them. And overall, I've been quite happy with all of them. I have never had any really negative experiences. I'm not going to do reviews of any specific supplier in this video. There are a lot of reviews out there. So I would recommend that you go to Google and you type in frozen rodent reptile food review or something like that. And just look up some of the reviews that people have put on the different reptile forums. I know a lot of rodent suppliers have both really positive and really negative reviews. So I urge you to do the research and make up your own mind. And then you probably should try ordering from a couple different ones and just see which ones you like. That said, a few things I look for. Number one is the quality of the rodents. You want nice, fresh, clean rodents. You want the packaging to be really nice and nicely packaged with not a lot of waste products. I mean, sometimes you see rodent feces in there, or litter or things like that. You want that to an absolute minimum. Another thing that you want to look for is that they have a constant supply. Many rodent suppliers are continuously out of different size rodents. A lot of them seem to always be out of the small and the medium rats, which are exactly the size that I need. So I want to be able to go to the website, order the rats I need, and not worry about rodents being out of stock. Another important consideration is the shipping. You want a supplier that really knows how to ship frozen rodents. They know how to pack them on dry ice. They know how to get them to you, and they're still nice and fresh. I've never had a package that went bad, but my supplier once or a few times I've had packages that are a few days late. And when this happens, the supplier sends me emails and checks in and just lets me know that it's late, but it's still shipping on its way. And in those cases, the package arrived and there was still enough dry ice that they were nice and frozen and fresh. So that's a really professional way for the supplier to act, just to make sure that the rodents made it to me. You also want to make sure that they can provide you the right size rodents. So many rodent suppliers will have small, medium, large, extra large, etc. And then they'll have a description of the size range, both the weight in grams as well as the length in inches. And sometimes they have this nice tight range, but sometimes you order and a medium rat will be huge. It's too big for your snake that wanted a medium rat, or it can be too small. So you want to make sure that they deliver rodents of the size range that they had described. And then a final consideration is the price. And of course the quality is the first thing you should look for. But if after the quality, if two suppliers have equal quality and one can provide a better price, that's always a plus. And sometimes some of these suppliers will provide you quantity discounts. So if you order above a certain number of rodent, they'll give you a discount. A couple other things that you should look out for when choosing a rodent supplier are the shipping cost, and some of the rodent suppliers will charge a per box fee. And so as long as your rodent order can fit in a certain size box, they'll charge you a flat rate. And this can make it easier to figure out the shipping. In addition, some rodent suppliers only provide mice and rats, whereas others will provide other food items that can be offered to boas occasionally, such as rabbits, chickens, quail, and hamsters. So these are other things you might want to consider for selecting your primary rodent supplier. I recommend that you have a backup supplier as well, so that just in case the primary supplier runs out or can't ship, you can go to your backup supplier. So far I've been talking about providers who ship the rodents to you. You may be able to provide you may be able to find a local supplier of rodents. Often you'll have local hobbyists that are breeding rodents for their own collection, and they often have excess that they sell to the general public. Sometimes they'll advertise on Craigslist or other classified websites. So you might want to look up these people to find a local supplier. So now you've gotten your order of rodents, but now what do you do with them? And if your significant other isn't so happy about you putting a bag of dead rats in with their ice cream, you may want to consider getting a small or medium-sized chest freezer. So I have a chest freezer that I believe is about 6 cubic feet that was only like $150 or so at Walmart. And it will hold about 4 or 5 months worth of frozen rodents for my whole collection. So it's really convenient to have, and I can order many boxes of rodents at a time and just store them in my chest freezer. So having a chest freezer is great if you have a medium or large size reptile collection, because you can keep several months worth of food on hand, and you don't have to worry about putting rodents into your main freezer where you keep your human food. However, if you only have 1 or 2 boas, a very small collection, and you want to buy rodents commercially, you may be intimidated because you have to pay a relatively large amount for the shipping, and you might be tempted to have to order a whole box, which might be like a year's worth of food for your boa, potentially 100 or 200 rodents. So if you fall in that category, it's often good to try to make friends with people who also have 1 or 2 snakes, and then you can go in on an order together and you can split the shipping costs. And that way you can only get the number of rodents that you're going to need without having to get too many. Incidentally, you should try to use your rodents as quickly as possible. The freezer life on them is really not much more than about 6 months or so. So you want to rotate your rodents, and as the new ones come in, you want to use up the old ones to make sure that you're giving your snakes rodents that aren't too old. I mentioned that you can look for a rodent supplier that provides prey items in addition to rats and mice. And now I want to just briefly discuss mixing your boa's diet up a bit and feeding them things other than the standard rat and mouse. So the first thing you might want to think about are quail. I typically will feed my subadult and adult boas quail every few months just to mix up their diet a bit, and they seem to really enjoy the variety and the addition of the quail to their diet. Another prey item you can look at are rabbits. And rabbits are suitable for the largest boas. Rabbits are very lean. They have a lower percentage of fat than rats or mice, so they're very healthy for your boa. In general, rabbits are a little more expensive per pound than the corresponding amount of rats. Chickens are also available, and boas can eat smaller chickens, although as I mentioned, I feed mine quail rather than chickens. I actually I have a large Indian python that gets chickens, but none of my boas are big enough to eat a large chicken. And then finally, hamsters. And hamsters are something that you can offer to your boa if the boa is picky about eating rats or mice. And the vast majority of boas are very, very good feeders, so that's probably not going to be the case, but it's something to keep in mind. The last food-related items I want to discuss are things to avoid when choosing your boa's food source. The first thing I would definitely avoid are the prepackaged frozen rats that you can get at your local chain pet shop. So I bought a prepackaged rodent once from a chain pet shop many years ago when I needed one. These are just packaged in this plastic sealed bag, and it's got like a brand name on it that I don't remember the brand name. But when I bought this rodent and took it home and opened it up, it was just in a horrific state of decomposition and just something that was completely unfit for any reptile to eat. I've heard similar stories from other people that have bought these prepackaged rodents. So you definitely want to avoid the prepackaged rodents from your local chain pet shop. One more thing to be on the lookout for that you definitely want to avoid feeding your boa is something called a fat rat. And a fat rat, as it sounds, is a rat that looks abnormally fat. And what these fat rats are is an animal model that's used in scientific research on obesity, diabetes, and other diseases. And these are a specific genetic strain of rat called a Zucker rat. And what they do is they make their bodies create an abnormally large percentage of fat. So the rat will literally look like a fat rat. It's just way too fat for the body size of the rat. Typically the Zucker rats are a hooded variety, which means that they have a black head and shoulders and a white body. They won't be an all white rat. And so these fat rats, because they have an abnormally large percentage of body fat, they're not fit for feeding to snakes. And there's a lot of stories online about these things, so I recommend that you do a search and see what you can read on the various reptile forums. But people have reported when feeding fat rats that sometimes the boas will regurgitate them very quickly and very violently, and the boas become very, very ill from eating the fat rat. And in some cases they've died within 24 hours. It's a really fast, horrific way for them to die. So it's other cases, they eat the fat rat, but they have this really fatty and liquidy stool that smells really horrible and just creates a huge mess. So anytime you see a rat like this, you really need to not feed it to your snake. And you definitely want to reach out to your rodent supplier and bring this to their attention. You don't want a rodent supplier that's using recycled research animals. You want animals which are bred specifically for the food supply for reptiles and other animals. To end this video, I thought I'd show you this nice holdback female Suriname true red-tailed boa. This female was born in 2016, so she's going on 4 years old now. She's about a little over 4 feet long. She's really starting to show the nice body shape of an adult true red tail. They start to get this really square body shape when they're about 3 or 4 years old. Right now I have her feeding on medium rats about every 2 to 3 weeks, so she's probably going to go to every 3 weeks this year, and she'll probably be bumped up to large rats. So this particular animal has probably about another 2 years, maybe 3 years to go before she's ready to breed. And you can see she's got this beautiful long red tail, these really nice peak saddles, and just high contrast overall. So really nice looking animal. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your boas.